Clovercrest Media Group presents a CMG podcast. Keys to the City.
Keys to the city, baby. When you see us, so you know.
Crossed up by Kobe, little floater to Shaq, and then Shaq goes like this, and the rest is history. Pay attention. Don't tell me what to do, devil woman. Speaking of those Lakers,
hold on. But I didn't make
I said Denver's gonna win.
Yeah, you did. You said that.
There's no other show like that.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Posting Up Podcast. I'm joined, as always, here by Big Jace Kingsley and Sean Scanlon. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Good. Doing good.
Okay. Good. So, someone not doing so good, unfortunately, it's pretty bad for the league, is Mr. Anthony Davis, and we're going to get right into that. Obviously, that's the biggest story in the league right now is Davis has a strained calf/Achilles. He's going to miss a minimum of 2 or 3 weeks. Obviously, like it says down there, Lakers are second in the West, sitting at 21-7. Anthony Davis's stats, while the scoring numbers aren't as high as they usually are, he's still very efficient, very dominant player in this league. How not only how big of a hit to the Lakers is this, but what teams, I want to know, can capitalize, because I think the Lakers are going to struggle during this time, to be quite honest. What team can take advantage of that and kind of work their way up the ladder in the Western Conference standings? Sean, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think that team for me would be the Phoenix Suns. I think that the way they're playing right now, they're playing really well, especially, having integrated Chris Paul into the offense. Chris Paul and Devin Booker are starting to really work well together. Devin Booker kind of had a rough start to the year, but he's really turned it on lately. And, they've won 6 in a row, and, they're 9-1 in their last 10 games. So if there's a team that will step up in the rankings, I think it is the Suns. I think they're 5 games back from the 1 seed right now. So I think they have a really good chance of getting that top 4 seed and, getting a home playoff game this year. But I do think that the Lakers aren't going to struggle as much as you might think. But I think, their depth is really good. I think that, they have players that could step up, and, they have some winnable games coming up. Including against the Timberwolves, the Wizards, the Kings. So there are a lot of easy games coming up, and I just think that the Lakers are the deepest team in the league, and they have guys that can step up. And obviously, we know LeBron James is the best player in the league, so I think he'll be able to carry the load. Obviously, AD is a huge part of that team, but I just think that the Lakers have a lot of depth, and they could do it without him. But we're going to have to see how long it actually takes. Obviously, it's 2 to 3 weeks minimum, but it might even be longer than that. So if it is a longer duration of time, I think they'll start to struggle a little bit. But for right now, if he does come back during that timetable, I don't think they're going to be. I don't think they're going to be as bad the next couple of weeks.
Isaiah, what's your take on this? I know before the show, I kind of overheard you talking to Jace about you have some history with Achilles issues. So how serious really is this for Anthony Davis?
I think it's serious. Anytime you see an upper hamstring strain, they claim that injury is. I think you have to look at the realism that Achilles is most likely going to tear eventually. It's similar to what happened Kevin Durant in the playoffs. If you remember, they listed it as an upper hamstring strain first, and then he ended up eventually rupturing his Achilles. So I think that the Lakers need to start thinking long-term for the possibility that he might actually rupture it, and probably look to make a trade somewhere down the line, maybe get a Drummond, somebody who could fill in at the center position, and because you don't know exactly how long he's going to be out and when he's going to feel comfortable enough to get back on the court. Because, like I said, this injury is completely tricky. They claim it's a hamstring injury, but I definitely believe it's the beginning of a Achilles rupture. But like Sean said, the teams, I believe the Phoenix Suns are definitely one of those teams that could definitely take advantage of this it's time with them out. Like you said, they won 6 in a row. I think their big test tonight will be against the Nets tonight. And if they could pull that off, I think then they can show everyone that they're definitely a contender in this league, because I see the Nets right now as the front runner in the East. So,
Jace, do you got any opinions on the situation? Do you think this will help any teams in the Western Conference looking to move up the standings?
Yeah, I think my team here is the Golden State Warriors. Steph has been balling out. He's tied with his MVP season as far as averaging for points per game right now, and he's shooting and he's lights out from 3 as always. He's playing very, very well, and the Warriors are at 8 right now. Maybe they can bump their way up and maybe get up to like maybe the 4 to hopefully get themselves some home court advantage or in the playoff or whatever they're going to do for that.
Yeah, I think the team I'm going to go with, I think it would be huge for the Clippers to move up. Obviously, a series with the Lakers would be in the same arena, so maybe that could be pushed off until the conference finals. Everyone thought that would be the conference finals last season, assuming the Clippers and the Lakers will be 2 of the top 3 seeds. They'll most likely meet in the conference finals. And I just think it'd be huge for the Clippers to, pending we have fans in the building at that point of the season, during the playoffs, having the Clippers having a home court advantage at least until they get to Los Angeles, because like I said, they're going to play in the same arena regardless. The court's just going to be different. So I think the Clippers can really look to take advantage of this, and hopefully Anthony Davis, it's the best case scenario for him, but like Isaiah said, you got to be careful with this kind of stuff because it's really nothing to mess around with. That'll bring us to our first game break of the day, but first we'll bring you a message from Clovercrest Media.
The Cross'em Wrestling Entertainment Podcast, presented by Clovercrest Media, is what you AEW fans have been looking for. Noah Cross and Tyler Bard give their take on every week's episode of Dynamite. If you are a massive AEW fan, then it is time to join us every Sunday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Stay Cross'em.
All right. So usually here we've been getting into games that us as fans are looking forward to this upcoming week up until our next show on Saturday. So we're going to go around the circle. I'll start with Jace this time. Jace, shoot me with the game that you're looking forward to watching throughout this week. Looks like
muted.
You're on.
I'm muted. My bad. The one I got is tonight. Steve just got some breaking news from Steve Risser. No KD or Kyrie tonight for the Nets, going up against the Suns. If the Suns really do want to take advantage of this AD injury, this is a big, big win that they got to get. I mean, especially without Kyrie and KD, and it's a very good advantage. For the
Zay, you got a game you're looking forward to, man?
Not so much, really. Actually, I haven't. Honestly, I haven't even looked that far in the schedule. Honestly, I've been watching my Knicks roll lately, so that's been much on my mind. Obviously, like he said, I had much of the Nets and the Suns game on my mind, but once that news broke, now it's like I don't know what game to really look forward to. Actually, that was one of the games I was looking forward to. I thought that was going to be a good matchup. Like you said, the Suns coming off of 6 in a row, the Nets I thought being the best team in the East, but apparently they can't seem to stay healthy. So that's going to be interesting down the stretch for them in the long run. But that was my game. I don't even know anymore. So Sean, you got a game?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to go with the Jazz and the Clippers. And with the back-to-backs, they're going to play Wednesday night and Friday night. So we're going to get, 2 games of, obviously 2 of the best teams in the Western Conference. And like we were talking about with the Lakers before, if they do end up struggling, these games are going to be huge for both of these teams, especially at the top. Every win counts, but especially, when you're going against a team that's in those top spots. If, say one of these teams could sweep the other in these 2, that'd be, huge for their, their playoff seeding. So I'm definitely looking forward to this matchup. It has a chance of being the Western Conference final, especially, if Anthony Davis ends up having an Achilles injury and he's out for, the rest of the year. But, 2 teams that are playing really well right now. The Clippers, even without Kawhi and Paul George, they've been balling the last 2 games they've won without their 2 superstars. So I think, their depth has proven to be, one of the better one of the more deeper rosters in the league too. And then obviously we know what the Jazz are doing. They've won 18 of their last 19, I believe now. They've been playing tremendous. Even, players off their bench, Jordan Clarkson dropped 40 points last night. That's just how much depth they have. So two very deep teams, two really good teams in the Western Conference. And it's definitely going to be two good battles on Wednesday and Friday. So how about you, Lucas?
Yeah, so I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this on Saturday's show. But we got finals rematch coming up on Saturday night on ABC. Those ABC games, they're always trying to make them, blockbuster prime time kind of games. And the Heat have been struggling as of late, but Jimmy Butler is kind of coming into form, putting up a few triple doubles in his past couple games. So I think the Heat can take advantage of a Lakers team without Anthony Davis. I think Bam Adebayo can look to have a good game. But let's see the Heat get away. What do you gotta say, Zay?
I don't know. I'm getting to the point where I believe the Heat are actually overrated.
You think so?
I believe the bubble might have really been a really big advantage for them getting to the finals last year. Because this is completely not the same team that they were last year. I thought it was maybe a thing of getting out the gate slow, or they played late into the season last year and then started early this year. They're just not looking good at all. No matter I mean, obviously I can't say much. They beat my Knicks back to back, but outside of that, they haven't looked really good. Even with Jimmy Butler, they just haven't looked like that same championship team.
So yeah, that's part of the reason, Zay, I'm actually looking forward to this game. I just kind of want to see who the Heat really are, because we saw last year in the bubble them put up some pretty good fights when they had to against this Lakers team. So we'll see what they can do on Saturday night against that pretty much the same team, give or take a few players. So we'll get into our next topic here. This is kind of weird to me. I can't remember the last time I've seen two teams especially do this with borderline stars. I guess you'd say Andre Drummond's more of a star than Blake Griffin. He's not playing too well this season, but the Pistons and the Cavs both announced their plans to completely rest Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin until they find a trade or a buyout option, which is strange to me. And you heard Draymond Green last night come out and say kind of like, DC's Andre Drummond warming up, go back into the tunnel and come out in street clothes. And, they're kind of just saying, you sit until we find somewhere for you to go, and he was talking about how Andre Drummond's kind of just expected to act professional. And if he doesn't act professional, if he voices his displeasure, he's an unprofessional player and he's a cancer in the locker room. So I wanted to get your guys' thought on both the weirdness of this plan by both teams. And then why don't you give me some places where you think these guys could land and make an impact? Zay, why don't you hit me first?
My biggest issue with this is if you hear a lot of times, you hear players say the league has a slave mentality. And I'm starting to agree with that situation when you want these players to now act professional just because the organization mentioned that they want to be gone. When a player what's his name? On the Draymond Green said, when a player comes out and basically expresses that they want to be traded, they're a cancer to the team or they're a distraction because they're acting out of line or whatever it is.
And they have to play still, right?
Huh?
And they have to still go out and play.
Yeah, they still have to go out and play and still, perform and still risk injury and everything. And I think it's just not fair that when a team feels like they're ready to just throw you away, they could just put you on the shelf until they're ready to give you to somebody else. And I don't like that fact at all. I think these guys should be allowed to play until they come up with a possible trade. You pay them to play. They work up, they show up every day. They should be playing unless they cannot physically play. There's no reason for them not to be playing. And if you're going to treat this situation like that, you have to make it so that when players are ready to leave, then they don't have to play so they can preserve their bodies so that when they go to the next team, that next team is actually getting something worth value instead of somebody who's been run down. But that's just my opinion on it.
Sean, what do you think of this whole thing going on?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what Draymond was saying. I think it's unfair to these players, who want to go out and every night and obviously, give their best performance. Even if they're not in the plans of the team going forward. Obviously, the Cavs and the Pistons want to go to their younger players, try and get them and develop them because, obviously they're not having great seasons. But at the end of the day, both these players could help out your teams too. The way that the Pistons and Cavaliers are playing, it's not like, it's not like they're detrimental, to these teams. They could go out and, help you win these games. So I think it's unfair to the players. And like Zay was saying, it is kind of like a slave mentality. The owners having all the control over these players, telling them that they actually can't play when, they have the contract in place, for them to be playing every single night. So I think it is unfair to these players. Obviously, I hope they go to better situations because obviously they're in two crap organizations. And I'm not surprised, honestly, because the Pistons, ever since that 2004 championship, they've been terrible ever since. They're one of the worst organizations in the NBA. Same with the Cavaliers. When LeBron hasn't been there, they've been in the dumpster. So, I think it doesn't surprise me by these teams because I think they're not well run, in the ownership and their GMs, the front office. So it doesn't really surprise me. But I do agree with Draymond's comments and Zay's comments. I think that they should have the opportunity to go out and play. But in some places, I think that would make sense though. Andre Drummond, I think the Nets or the Celtics would make sense. Obviously, both those teams need big men, and the Celtics have been struggling a lot. Obviously with Marcus Smart being injured, they're at 500 right now, and I think with the talent they have, they should be well above that. So I think those are two teams. And then for Blake Griffin, I would like to see a reunion with the Clippers, just because I think he could, go and help them, win a championship. And obviously I think he deserves that opportunity. He helped build the Clippers up to what they are today. Obviously what him and Chris Paul did in the Lob City era. But I don't know if any team's going to be willing to take on Blake Griffin's contract right now. He's obviously regressed in the past couple of years. A lot of injuries. He's not as explosive as he was, and he's got that that huge contract that I'm not sure a lot of teams would be willing to take on. But if there is one team that I could see him going to, is a reunion with the Clippers.
Yeah, and you mentioned these two guys, and the last time these two were traded, I thought both trades made really no sense whatsoever. Blake Griffin going to Detroit. I mean, why are you trading him there? He made an All-NBA team one season, and he's been there for 3 or 4 years now, but they haven't done anything. They've been bottom feeders in the East. Same with the Cavaliers acquiring Andre Drummond last season. The Pistons were shopping him, and just to trade him to another team that's down near the bottom of the conference every year, it just didn't make any sense to me. So you'd hope coming up in this trade deadline, you'd see Andre Drummond go to a team that really does need him, like the Celtics or the Nets, even though I think that I don't want the Nets to get him because I think that would create quite an unbalance in the league. So even though I don't like the Celtics very much, being a Sixers fan, I'd like to see him go somewhere he can fit in and, be needed on a team that has championship aspirations. And as for Blake Griffin with that huge contract, Sean, I was thinking maybe a lower level team, like maybe team either fighting for one of the bottom seeds could trade for him just as a veteran leader and someone who has playoff experience. Although he hasn't been to a conference finals, he's played quite a few playoff games in his day. I think they could use him kind of as a mentor. So maybe like who's at the bottom, like maybe
I think the Hornets maybe would.
Yeah, that's a good destination for him. Or maybe going back home to Oklahoma and going to Oklahoma City, trying to squeeze them in that bottom of the Western Conference. I could see that happening. Zay,
I was just going to say,
what are we considering the bottom? There's a playoff this year. There's like a play-in this year. So what are we considering the bottom?
That's true.
Yeah, it could be any 8 through the 11 seeds with the playing games. But I was just going to say, I think that's a good point of him being a mentor. I think, we've seen it with Zay's Knicks. They just got Dirk Rhodes, and obviously, they're on that winning streak right now. They've looked great. But I think Derrick Rose has been great, for the young players like Emmanuel Quickley, Obi Toppin. Every time I've been watching the Knicks on MSG, he's always talking with the young players. It looks like he's always interacting with them, just telling them and showing them the ropes. So I think that is a good point. I think definitely for a younger team, having a mentor like that could definitely help and to change the culture around. I think we've seen that with the Knicks already.
Well, Dirk Rhodes is another player who was traded to a Pistons team. He was just thrown to the just to be forgotten about. It was thrown to be forgotten about. That's what happens when teams are done with you. They just throw you to the wayside. And
I believe it or not, I think Derrick Rose chose to sign with Detroit, if I am remembering that correctly.
Did he really?
I think so. I don't know. I was very confused on that myself. But hey, I guess if the money's right.
Sometimes it's got to be more than the money. It's got to be situation.
But Zay, you got anywhere you think these guys will go? Blake Griffin or Andre Drummond? Anything you want to see them?
maybe I said if you run into an injury situation and maybe he could fill in that Lakers area, maybe he can fill in for an Anthony Davis. But obviously, it's always a fill-in. No one's going to ever replace what Anthony Davis could do on the court. That's just ridiculous talk. But honestly, it's going to be a team that Sean said, it's probably going to be a team in that play-in area that just needs a player that can help them, be that veteran person in the room, like a Sacramento or something. A team that's playing well, they just need a older voice in the room. That's all. But to pinpoint an actual destination for them too, that could be a toss-up. We don't even know if they're going to move. They could just get bought out at this point.
There's always trade talk at this time of the year, but most of the time I'd say the players don't even move. But we'll see. That's to be seen. We'll get into another game break after this message from Clovercrest Media.
Welcome to Ivy League Murders. On this podcast, we focus on cases affiliated with the Ivy League, exploring the darker side of higher education. What happens when genius becomes evil? My name is Sarah Alcorn. I'm a Harvard graduate, and I've been a private investigator since 1999. Join me and longtime crime diva Laura McDonald for Ivy League Murders.
All right, so getting into our second game break of the day here. Obviously, like we talked about earlier in the show, Anthony Davis is going to miss 2 to 3 weeks, and that's quite unfortunate. But the Spurs are having, I guess we'd call it quite a rare outbreak of COVID. A lot of their games this upcoming week have been canceled already. Usually we don't see games canceled or postponed. We usually see players just sitting out of games. Nothing really to talk about there, I guess. If you guys have anything to chime in on the Spurs situation, go ahead.
I think it's great, actually. You talk about a lot of teams that they're still doing all this testing and the protocols. We're still hearing about it. I think is good because now teams are starting to allow fans back in. Especially, I know I got an email this morning that the Knicks and Rangers are starting letting people back in Madison Square Garden once you go through all their protocol procedures. So, it's important to make sure that these players aren't carrying it, because the last thing you need is the players to be giving the fans COVID-19, and then we have a bigger situation on our hands. But no, it's obviously it's an unfortunate situation. It affects the schedule, a schedule that, obviously we don't even have a second half of the schedule. We have until March 2nd, and we don't know what's going to happen. So you're just hoping that they can get their games in before this all-star break or second half break, whatever you want to call it. But like I said, you just want to, get these games in. Every game affects the schedule, and every game that's missed or pushed out, it changes the schedule, it changes teams, and affects how they play. Teams go on stretches, some teams don't. COVID-19 is just really sucky thing.
Oh, right. Sean, you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I just think it's important that the protocols are in place. I agree with that. And then I think for the Spurs, though, it's going to hurt them. I think they're playing really well right now. They're at the 6th seed in the West, and they have a lot of young talent on that team that's been playing really well, like DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Keldon Johnson. And then they got the veterans like LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan. So I think the whole, might slow down the momentum they had going. I think that's the only thing that might hurt them, because the Spurs, obviously last year they weren't as great, but they've been a great organization, for as long as, we've been alive. So I think that it's important for them to, get back in the playoffs. And I think this might hurt them a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think they'll get back into it. But I think we've seen it with some teams, including the Celtics, who've had these COVID outbreaks, and then coming back from that, it's been, kind of rough. So I think that there's definitely a chance that, they can go on a little bit of a losing streak once they get back.
Yeah, no, it's always hard when you take a big amount of time off and then you have to come back and play. But you never know. We saw a Browns team that practiced once win a playoff game. So anything could happen in the sports world in this time. John Wall returned to Washington, D.C. last night, and they had an absolute shootout with the Wizards. Bradley Beal dropped a bunch of points like he always does, but it's usually in a losing effort. This time it resulted in a win. Wizards improved to 8-17, and the Rockets dropped their 6th straight game. I know, Sean, you've been high on John Wall and how he's looked this season. What do you think John Wall is back to who he used to be?
I think I wouldn't say he's 100% back, but he's definitely getting there. You could see that quickness and that burst that, obviously he's been known for his whole life. Obviously in the fast breaks, he's one of the fastest players in the NBA. So I think he is getting back to that point. Obviously he's been dominant, scoring the ball, and not just that, but facilitating. He's also been great at that in his career. So I think he is getting back to that point. But I think for the Rockets, like you mentioned, the 6 straight losses, I think the loss of Christian Wood can't be understated enough. Ever since he's been out with the ankle injury, they've really been losing all these games. So I think that, Christian Wood was definitely a huge part of that team, and I think that they're going to continue to struggle without him.
Oh, oops, I was muted. I was gonna say, Isaiah, you think do you think John Wall can last in Houston? Do you think they have a plan set up for him, or do you think he'll continue his career elsewhere after his little stint?
I think he'll be there for a while until they can find someone to replace him. Well, I think Wall is a great player. I do think his better days are behind him. He's had a tough couple of years with the injuries back to back. Some of them not even on the court. So when you add in all of that, and then you add in a Rockets team that right now no one isn't even sure if they even have a direction of which way they're going. Are they going to trade Victor Oladipo? Are they going to keep him? We don't know what's really going to go on with that situation. So I just think John Wall is just a one of those, like, a maintain piece, a piece just to help maintain the team right now, just to maintain viewership, just to keep the team afloat until they can really determine which direction they're going in, whether it's a rebuild situation or they're going to try to shoot for the playoffs and add players. But I think he's just there for the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see him get kind of a second chance somewhere else. Although he probably loves it in Houston. I mean, the fans, I think, like him a lot. He looks like he's barely lost a step athletically. I mean, he's doing some things on the court that I could never do, even if I practiced it 1,000 times. So John Wall's in a good place right now. This last topic we're going to get into here is kind of fun. I always try to end with something fun, and my mind goes different places when I think of these things. So this is the prompt, right? You have one opportunity in a one-on-one situation. You have to score on an NBA player. It could be a three, it could be a mid-range shot, turnaround, post-up, fade, little layup, something like that. Or you go to jail for 15 years. 15 years in jail. You don't see any friends, family, locked up, no one to check on you, nothing. Crappy food, everything from A to Z. Which player today, current player, or they could be a free agent, because we know someone out there who's a free agent, is pretty bad defender.
Like that.
Sean and Zay, I'll start with Sean. Who you choosing to go up against? Who you giving yourself the best shot against to score a bucket?
All right, well, yeah, if we're including free agents, I have to go with him because I wrote it down when I was doing my notes. I mentioned that I wish he was in the league, but I have to go with Isaiah Thomas. I'm sure that's who you were talking about. Obviously, when he was in the league, he was every single year one of the worst rated defensive players by every metric, that you see. And then also, I have a little bit of a height advantage on him. So if he does end up if I end up not getting by him and not getting to the post, then I always, could get the jumper over his head. I think that, I don't think he's blocking my shot. If he did, I'd be pretty embarrassed. I think I can get a shot up off him. So I think if there's anyone that I had to choose, I think that Isaiah Thomas would be the easiest pick. So if I have to go get a bucket, I'm choosing IT. Who would you go with, Zay?
I would have took IT, but I thought we had to do current playing players. So I'm actually going to go with Chris Clemens. He's actually only 5'9". Yeah, he gives me a good chance. I'm a good 5'11" and 3/4, damn near 6 foot. So, I got a good chance to go over the top on him, shoot it, maybe play down low, something back him down. Nah, he's actually a pretty big guy. I'm just kidding. But, nah, I'd probably try to use the height advantage at my best. I couldn't think of anyone else.
All right, since Jace is roasting me, I'll pick another one after you go, Lucas, because I did have another one.
Okay. I'm gonna go. Hopefully, this isn't who you have, Sean. I'm gonna go with DJ Augustine of the Milwaukee Bucks. He's 5'11". I am 6 feet tall, so hopefully, I'd be able to have that little height advantage over him. I think I'd try to, because he's a point guard. He could pick my pocket. I'd try to just post him up, keep the ball far away from him, and get close enough where I could let off a hook shot and pray that it goes in because I don't want to go to jail.
He's your 3-year-old child. You go. That's your little 5-year-old child. You go back him down a hook shot over him.
I guess that's how I try to. That's how I go at it, Zay. I'm telling you, man.
I love it.
Sean, so you're gonna pick a current player here.
I'll go with Trae Young. Obviously, he's super gifted offensively. We know that, but he's also one of the worst rated defensive players in the league since he's been in the league. And I'm the same height as him, so same situation. If I get stuffed by him, then I'll take my 15-year sentence. But I think that I could get the shot up off him, and obviously he's super quick, so I don't think I'm getting around him. But I do think that I could hit him with a quick crossover, get the shot up over him. And I think I'm going to stay away from that jail sentence with Trae Young.
15 years is a long time, bro.
It is a long time.
You realize in 15 years, there was a point we didn't have Wi-Fi?
I feel confident with my pick. I'm staying with it.
Hey, if we could go anyone, though, outside of current players, you got to go with Muggsy, 5'3". Although he has some pretty good hops, but
yeah.
I can go Nate too. I could probably go Nate.
Nate Robinson, that's a good one.
Bud Webb.
I could have Jake Paul come knock him out before I put up a shot.
Yikes.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. That's my Nate.
I was gonna say a former Knick, and you're dissing him like that. Come on.
He's a former Knick, former Chicago, former everything. He's one of those guys.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I guess if no one else has anything to say, we'll end the show right there. Shout out to Jace who got logged out, pushed out by StreamYard, and
he got tired of seeing that Utah hat.
Yeah, he still produced for us though. So shout out to Jace. Shout out you guys too, Isaiah and Sean. As always, my name is Lucas Bolduck, and this has been the Posting Up Podcast. Join us next time.
Peace.